Kevin Miller in the morning here at KIDO Talk Radio. Coming up, our State of the Union watch party at Dave & Buster's tonight. More details at KIDO Talk Radio. Joining us now from the RNC in Washington, Cassie Smedley. Cassie, good to have you with us again.
Hey, Kevin. Happy State of the Union Day.
It is indeed. Certainly what a difference a year makes.
Yeah, you're not kidding. I think we can expect a speech tonight talking about all the accomplishments, all the things that the American people are already feeling in their everyday lives and certainly in their paychecks. And I think the president's going to build on that to call on more positive action on his agenda, namely, yes, immigration reform, but certainly infrastructure as well. And these are two issues where we should be able to find a lot of bipartisan buy-in to get something done for the American people. And I'm excited that you're going to be at a watch party. We've got 140 watch parties happening across the country tonight with a lot of people excited to hear what the president's got to say. So it should be a good night.
Well, we're glad to join the club on that one. Certainly it's important to build a community and to nurture that, because so many times you just get mad, Cassie, talking back at the radio or the TV.
Right. I made the mistake of watching the Grammys the other night. I was one of the few people, it looks like, who did. And my friends who I was watching it with were just like, why do you put yourself through this? You're a masochist. But, I like the music. But, yeah, it's nice to be amongst friends, that's for sure.
What I don't get is you take a look at the tax reform bill. It's had an immediate impact, probably the most in our lifetime that we've seen, a direct correlation to the House and the Senate, along with the president, without the Democrats, pass this thing. You've got this massive amount of money coming back to America, and yet we have our friends in the media that reluctantly cover it and don't give it the light of day.
Yeah, and we've seen this before. This happened all during the 2016 presidential cycle, and weren't they surprised on election night? But for those of us who live out and spend time out in real America, we saw this coming, because you saw the frustration from the American people that our lives had not changed. We'd remained stagnant. You saw stores closing and people giving up on having any measurable 401k to rely upon in their retirement. And we really wanted a fighter. We just weren't getting that out of President Obama and certainly not out of Democrats. And here President Trump comes in, then candidate Trump comes in. He listens to the American people. He goes to places that Democrats hadn't gone in any number of years, and Republicans as well. And he says, okay, I'm going to go get that done for you. And he comes to the White House. He makes relationships with Congress, Chuck and Nancy included, and he fights for the agenda that he ran on, because that's the agenda that the American people need. And we're getting things done. And it's funny, you talk about tax reform. I've almost forgotten about that $1,200 tax cut we're all supposed to get, because the news has really just been taken over, whether the mainstream media wants to admit it or not, with the daily deluge of businesses who have announced hiring and increases in wages. And I just saw on my Facebook last night, there's a friend who owns a restaurant in Hudson, Wisconsin, who's given all his full-time employees a $1,000 bonus. And you know why? Because he wants to hang on to those good employees. That's the ripple effect of this tax reform plan, is that you've got businesses who are now incentivized to compete for good workers.
Very different from what we saw under 8 years under President Obama, Cassie.
You got it. And I think that's the thing. We've forgotten what it felt like to be excited about the direction things are going in. It felt like everything was insurmountable and that it was just one issue after another. And to be clear, we do have issues in this country that we need to solve. And I know the president is keeping his eye on the prize on that. But it's just nice to have a little bit of time here to turn to our neighbors and say, you feel pretty good about your 401k? Oh, did you see what happened with so-and-so's place down the road? Yeah, these are good things, and that only breeds more good news with that enthusiasm and momentum to make this country great again.
Indeed, of course, a very different view than what we saw under President Obama, which was make the world great again at the expense of America. And it took someone like President Trump, along with the RNC, to say, let's take a look at where we are and take care of our own people.
Right, and we heard the president go to Davos last week, the most, buddy on the world stage, right? And he didn't go there and cow to them or bow to them. He went there and he talked about America. He talked about what he's doing here in our country. And you know what happened? He received a rock star welcome. I think it was something that all the mainstream media who ran there to cover it and presuming he would fall on his face watched all of these leaders and business people say, I like the way things are going over there in your country, and they paid attention to him. And I read something yesterday, it was poor timing, but Theresa May from the UK, her speech was at the same time as President Trump's, and I guess she spoke to a half-empty room because everybody was clamoring to get in and listen to President Trump. And I love that. I love that he went to the most global of all the global stages, and he talked about America and what we are doing here at home. And people want to be a part of that, and that's great. We welcome their business.
What do you think the president, what we think will be the big takeaway? Are you hearing any previews?
Well, one thing that we know for sure we're going to hear tonight is a bipartisan tone. I know that there are many Democrats who have chosen to boycott the speech, and that's unfortunate. I can tell you I worked on Capitol Hill for 11 years, and I never worked for a Republican member who boycotted President Obama's speeches because they understand that it's about the constituents, it's not about them, and Democrats need to take that lesson to heart. But you are going to hear a bipartisan tone. You are going to hear him talk about, as much as we have accomplished without you, here we need you to get these things done, and your constituents need you. And he's going to be speaking directly to, in particular, those 10 senators who are up for re-election in states that he won in 2016. They need something to go home and run on, and he's going to give them plenty of moments to be the representative and the senator that their constituents need and want. And it's going to be up to them if they heed those opportunities. So far, we haven't seen them do that other than voting against a government shutdown, but they have not chosen to be on the side of their constituents yet. So I think he's going to offer them those olive branches because the fact is we don't have 60 Republican senators, so we do need Democrats, and we're going to find those votes in those 10 Democrats, and I think expect him to speak directly to them tonight. But also, of course, to the entire country. It's going to be very bipartisan. We're not going to see the Trump from the rallies on the road. He's going there with a mission to get more things done, and he realizes Democrats have to be a part of that process.
Tough for them to be a part of the process, considering they missed out on tax reform and poo-pooed everything. And, you know, what can you say when people are getting $1,000 bonuses? I mean, oh, it's bad. Okay.
I know. Well, and so far they've had a lot of no comments, and very unfortunately for them, their dear leader Nancy Pelosi, with her crumbs comment, that's going to be something that's going to be played all over airwaves this year and this fall. And for our part at the RNC, we've got record fundraising, and that has propelled us to have a record number of people in more states than ever before, including a presidential year. And we've got the ground game going right now today to let people know just who's on their side and who's working for them. And we're going to make sure that voters remember in November who did show up, who did try and get something done, who did try and push their agenda and their priorities, and who just tried to obstruct and stand in the way. And these 10 Democrats have a choice if they want to be part of the solution or if they want to obstruct and stand in the way. We're going to have everything in place to make sure people know that, too.
Yeah, see anything else you'd like to share with us here at KIDO Talk Radio?
Well, it's just great to be with you, and I hope you guys have fun at your watch party tonight. It should be a great speech, and just hopefully it will propel more enthusiasm and momentum to keep making our country great.
Thank you, ma'am. Take care.
Thank you. Same to you.
All right, there we have it. Let's go to our friend Peyton from the Young Republicans. We had a chance to meet Peyton at the Canyon County Kids Expo. Peyton, good morning.
Good morning, Kevin. Thank you for having me. I heard you talking about the indecent exposure and the breastfeeding laws. I wanted to chime in. It hit home kind of hard for me, Kevin, because my daughter, my first child, we were unable to breastfeed, and I was with the mother of my daughter the whole time, struggling, trying to get that whole thing to happen. And we both really began to appreciate the blessing of not only the gift we have of bringing life into this world, but the blessing mothers have, that bond and connection. They're able to feed their child with their own body. And to answer that question, do I think there should be laws of protecting women for breastfeeding? In a way, no. I don't think that there should even be a conversation. Are you kidding me? A woman should have to deny her baby food because of fear of offending the epidemic of snowflakes in this country? No. I think that it's sad, but yes, there should be laws to protect women because they should be able to share that bond with their child at any time. And it was nice seeing you at the Kids Expo, too. I love to see that you're involved in our community like that. Your wife must be proud. You were eating that nice, healthy salad when I saw you. So, anyway.
Yes.
Thanks for having me on.
Peyton, God bless you. Thank you for your service. And I was telling my wife what it was a privilege to share in our great conversation, even though it was very short. So God bless you, my friend.
Yeah, maybe we have more of those short conversations. Have a good one.
Take care. All right. Our great friend Peyton joining us from the Young Republicans. Kevin Miller in the morning here. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. And so we were taking a look at this, and there's a big proposal in the legislature, and we go to Betsy Russell from the Spokesman Review. Idaho is the last state with no legal protection for breastfeeding mothers. According to a state representative from Coeur d'Alene, he's proposing legislation to exempt breastfeeding nurse-feeding moms from the state's indecent exposure law. Now, you heard Peyton very passionate about this, saying it hit close to home. But how many people are going to charge anybody with indecent exposure these days? And you have a group of militant breastfeeding moms in the Treasure Valley that go to the Capitol every year and want this law passed. Now, the benefits of breastfeeding children are scientifically undeniable. The panel voted unanimously to introduce his bill. Again, I don't see where the problem is. But on the other hand, you have another representative from Coeur d'Alene proposed legislation to protect breastfeeding mothers in 2003. Then Representative Pete Nielsen, Mountain Home, we love Pete, former representative now, told the House Health and Welfare Committee that he feared that under the Douglas bill in 2003, women would be encouraged to, quote, whip it out and do it anywhere. Other male lawmakers said they feared people would disrobe next to them in restaurants when they want to go out to eat. The 2003 bill didn't pass. Well, we've come a long way, baby. But really, in the politically correct world that we live in today, is anybody going to say, I'm sorry, I find breastfeeding offensive? Is there really a groundswell for this law? Well, why are you talking about it, Kevin Miller? Because it's just so unusual that Idaho is the only state that doesn't have laws protecting people. When's the last time? And remember when the Boise City Council passed the hate laws or whatever, or against the hate laws or the hate crimes or what have you. And so give us specific incidents of a need for this law. And they said, well, no, there aren't any. Okay, so at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, is there a need to protect mothers that breastfeed in Idaho? Are we prosecuting them? Obviously, people feel very strongly about this bill, but really, is this another example of why we shouldn't have the legislature meet every 2 years and give the people a break that have to take time off from their jobs and work? Think about that. I'd love to hear from you next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. And blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning here on KIDO Talk Radio. Don't forget, tonight is our debate watch party. We would love to see you there at Dave & Buster's. And, we're thinking about inviting all the candidates, and maybe they'll show up, maybe they won't. It wouldn't be bad to see everybody. Of course, we will take a look at that as we move along. So if you want to watch the State of the Union, we will gladly take care of that. Well, we'll just take them now. Joining us now is Representative Ron Nate. Representative Nate, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good to have you here. You're on with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. So a busy day in the legislature yesterday, sir.
Yeah, it sure was. I think we got started on some good things for Idaho.
Such as?
Well, I introduced a bill that would allow and encourage school boards to have gun safety classes in their K through 12 program. And it went well. It was introduced unanimously, and so I'm looking forward to having a full hearing on that and seeing if we can help keep kids safe in Idaho.
Have you noticed, sir, a different reception from last legislative session to this one? Is it different this time around?
Yes, it is. It's different for two reasons. Number one, the bill is different. Last year, it was only for secondary schools. I tried to change it at the last minute, but the chairman was uncomfortable with that. So this year, I brought one that applied to elementary schools where the programs are actually more effective. The Centers for Disease Control did a study on the Eddie Eagle program of the NRA, and they found that there was an 80% reduction in firearm-related deaths amongst kids that took that program. And so I think the bill is better this year, and also the committee seems more warm to it.
Sure. And why is this so important?
Well, first of all, it deals with kids and their safety, and so I don't think much more can be important than that. Also, even if kids don't have guns in their home, there's a significant chance they will encounter them in their homes, in friends or with friends or in other situations. Over 1/3 of homes in America have guns, and probably more so in Idaho. So I think it's even more important for Idaho schools.
Do you expect any opposition?
I don't really, but you never know what comes out in a committee hearing or on the floor of the House. But I really, this is it's a cost-free bill. It's an encouragement for school boards. They would now know that in statute they are authorized to offer these if they want to. And so I don't see any negatives with it. I'd be surprised if there was pushback.
More coming up with Representative Nate in a minute. First, traffic and weather together. A great champion of the conservative movement in the state of Idaho, Representative Ron Nate, joining us here on KIDO Talk Radio. So, Representative Nate, how is the conservative agenda being received this time around? I know it's early in the legislature, sir, but how's it being received? We heard about the Castle bill. We heard about your bill. Your thoughts, sir?
Well, I think there's a marked difference this year from last year. Last year, if you remember, we were frustrated with the committee process. They seem to uphold this tradition where chairmen get the first right of veto in committees, and they would draw bills. This time around, because of the pushback and because of us trying to employ whatever procedures are possible, leadership and committee chairs have been much more willing to introduce bills, at least in this first 2 weeks. We will see if that translates into full bill hearings, but we're hopeful. I mean, the attitude around the legislature is much more receptive to hearing all ideas, having an arena of ideas where we can have the full debate and vote either up or down on it. I think that's what citizens want. They were frustrated with the committee process as well. So I'm getting good feedback from citizens that are happy to see their bills moving forward finally.
Do you think the shadow of this competitive primary is weighing into the feeling of goodwill?
Kevin, I can't discount it. I think that the election is coming up, and it's going to be an exciting one with all the candidates in the governor's race and the lieutenant governor's race. And I know that there's a lot of competitive races around the state. There's a lot of empty seats now in the House and Senate as some of those representatives and senators are moving up or trying to move up to higher offices. So I think there is, people are very aware of the election, and I think that when people are aware of elections and they're sensitive to what voters and constituents want, I think you get better public policy. That's why I think in an election year you get more we the people than you get they the establishment.
Representative Ron Nate with us, Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. So, Representative Nate, how does this play into the primary? And you're going, Kevin Miller, we just got through, we're not even through, the session, and you're already talking about the primary, but we could see we will see a huge turnover that's not really being covered in the House and Senate.
Well, I didn't bring up the primary. You did, Kevin.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's going to be, I think it's going to be exciting, and I love campaign season. I love going door to door and talking to the voters and hearing from them how well I'm doing, hearing from them what issues are important to them, and I think we get better governance out of the process.
Finally, and we'd love to have you back, sir. We appreciate you waking up so early. Your thoughts on the governor's proposal, increased spending here, increased spending there, very different from what we've seen from the Otter administration in previous budgets and previous budgetary proposals.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I'll tell the people of Idaho right here that the Capitol is swimming in extra tax collection dollars that weren't anticipated. There's over $300 million of extra tax collections above what was projected coming in. There's also another $100 million that's due to come in when Idaho conforms with the federal tax law that changed the exemptions and deductions. So there's $400 million of extra collections that we didn't anticipate. The governor, in his plan, wanted to spend it up. He wants 9.2% increase in spending. And I think it's time that we remember the taxpayers. 3 years ago, we raised registration fees and gasoline taxes. Last year, we borrowed even more money for roads. The past 3 years, we've increased education spending by a combined total of 23%. If that went to teachers, I think we'd get great results in education. But unfortunately, we've added a lot of programs and things to education, too. I think we can be fiscally conservative and still return a lot of these extra tax dollars to the hardworking families that actually earn them.
Representative Nate, a great start to the day. Thank you, sir.
Hey, thank you very much, Kevin. It's always a pleasure to be on your show.
We'd love to have you back. Have a great day, sir.
Thank you. You too.
Okay, bye-bye. Our great friend, Representative Ron Nate, joining the club here. So we've had Representative Moon on, Representative Nate. Who knows who will come on next? Thank you, Ray Amaya. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie.
Good morning.
Oakland State Assemblyman Rob Bonta says Californians who commit suicide after purchasing a gun most often do so within a week of purchase. He's introduced AB 1927, a bill that would temporarily bar people from buying guns. If they struggle with suicidal thoughts or fear, they're a danger to themselves. The catch, they'd have to voluntarily submit their name to a state office responsible for background checks, which would then alert licensed arm dealers not to sell them weapons. Jeff Manasso, Fox News.
It's kind of strange when you think about it, but again, another outbreak or outpost from the state of California here. The phone number is 580-5436, 580-KIDO. A few issues going on, none bigger than the FBI having, the FBI director, Christopher Wray, has supposedly been under pressure by the White House to fire McCabe. You remember Andrew McCabe. He has officially stepped down yesterday because of his political ties. However, the Trump administration denies having anything to do with McCabe's resignation. Well, look, McCabe had to go. Rosenstein has to go. By the way, Congressman Jim Jordan had this to say earlier on Fox and Friends about the whole issue involving credibility.
Those same people, the fix was in on the Clinton investigation. They were then the ones who started and ran the Russia-Trump investigation. And anyone with common sense is going to say, wait a minute, what's going on here? When you look at some of the text message and see the bias that exists there, this is a problem.
The fix was in. Donald Trump was never supposed to win. Remember, election night, we were all surprised. Some say even the president-elect, certainly Barack Obama. Remember, you don't have to be addicted to Sean Hannity and Lars Larson to get this. Of what a shocker it was. I can remember watching little Chucky Todd breaking things down and hearing him in real time say that Trump was going to win even before he admitted it. And remember, Barack Obama had to call Hillary Clinton and say, Hillary, it's time to concede. She didn't want to concede because the deep state thought the fix was in. And even during the election, when MSNBC says the peso is going to record levels, the Mexican stock market could be crashing because of the probable election of Donald Trump. This whole thing, this whole Russian collusion thing is crazy. So what happened yesterday? In a vote down party lines, Republicans on the House Intelligence Committee voted to release a classified memo which supposedly shows the improper use of surveillance by the FBI and the Department of Justice. Now, this is in regards to the Russian investigation. Earlier today on Fox and Friends, and remember, when you hear Fox News on the radio, there's only one station that is your Fox News station, KIDO Talk Radio. Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan is eager for the memo to be released and believes President Trump will allow the memo to be released. As Jordan said, the fix was in. And by the way, at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, the fix was already in. So no wonder Page and Strzok felt so confident during their extramarital affair that they were making fun of Loretta Lynch, making fun of everybody, because they had dodged the bullet of Hillary Clinton and her email scandal, right? Here's Congressman Jordan.
He can go thumbs up or thumbs down. I think he'll go thumbs up. Let every journalist in the country see it. More importantly, let every American see this memo. If he goes thumbs up, in 5 days it's public, and then the American people can see it, which I think it will speak for itself.
He's right. We need to see it. And now you have the Democrats, led by Adam Schiff, saying they have a memo. It's a memo that no one has seen. And apparently the memo is going to disrupt the distraction memo, according to Fox News' Shep Smith, calling it the distraction memo. This is legitimate. This is big. Now you have former FBI Director James Comey tweeting out his disagreement over the firing of McCabe. McCabe had to go. Rosenstein has to go. Mueller has to go. And the Democrats, this is their last shot to get Trump. So I agree that the memo should be released. Don't you? 580-5436. 580-KIDO. Release the memo. And then you have other people saying, well, it's a distraction to derail the Russian investigation.
Sadly, we can fully expect that the President of the United States will not put the national interest over his own personal interest. But it is a sad day indeed when that is also true of our own committee, because today this committee voted to put the President's personal interest, perhaps their own political interest, above the national interest, in denying themselves even the ability to hear from the department and the FBI.
Well, of course the FBI doesn't want it released. This is embarrassing. And you know something? Sometimes you have to pay the piper. How many times have we messed up at work? Well, how many times have I messed up at work? Now, I'm not just talking about here, but when you mess up at work, when you embarrass your company, when you embarrass your employer, chances are you're not going to be around. And why are Strzok, why are other people still at the FBI? They should be gone, right?
We raised, of course, the transparently political objective behind this, which is to allow the majority to set a certain narrative for a week or so before they released a full statement of the facts from the minority. But nonetheless, this is where we are. We had votes today to politicize the intelligence process, to prohibit the FBI and the Department of Justice from expressing their concerns to our committee and to the House, and to selectively release to the public only the majority's distorted memo without the full facts.
There we have it at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. And I'm just sitting here taking a look at this and thinking to myself, well, where is this other memo? Well, nobody's seen it, right? Anyway, that is one issue. Another issue is the idea of how do you treat people's kids, right? Public officials' kids. Many times we've heard, with the exception of Barron Trump, that kids are off limits, except when it's a conservative kid. Not so much with Tom Brady.
Tom Brady kept his comments brief during his weekly appearance on Kirk and Callahan on WEEI in Boston.
I'll obviously evaluate whether I want to come on this show again, so I really don't have much to say this morning.
The Patriots quarterback not upset with the host of that particular show, but with another host on WEEI, Alex Reimer. That's after Reimer used inappropriate language to describe Brady's 5-year-old daughter's appearance in the family's new Facebook docuseries Tom vs. Time. Reimer has since been suspended, with many of his colleagues finding the suspension fit and Reimer's comments out of line. Matt Napolitano, Fox News.
And we won't repeat what this gentleman said, but it shows you the callousness of the folks in the media. No, not all the people in the media. There are some people locally that do great work. You know, our friends at Channel 7. You have Maggie O'Mara with Seven's Heroes and you have Mark Johnson with his great stories, and really just wonderful issues. Tammy Tremblay, who won a National Murrow Award for going to the border with Sheriff Donahue. So we're not so much talking about local folks, but you have people, and in the old days they used to call them shock jocks. And we would find them entertaining because they could do things that we would get in trouble for. Well, sooner or later, and call it the Super Bowl of Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake, well, the shock caught up to people. And you can't go into people's places of worship and say stupid things. And now we have the pendulum going the exact other way. And look, so many times we look at people, political folks. That's why when we have politicians on, sometimes I will sit back and I will just ask them questions about their life, right? Because we tend to look at them as objects and not as people that get up each and every day, that have their breakfast, that worry about paying their bills, that wonder what's going to hit them each and every day, that have the same challenges that we do. And so, you have somebody attacking somebody's kid. And look, sports radio is a liberal. It is a place where people, are very young, that don't have a lot of life experience. And like we said before, you make mistakes. And now you have people defending this guy who said this comment about Tom Brady. Tom Brady is a dad like everybody else. And some people will argue, well, you put cameras in, and I did watch the Facebook thing, Tom versus Time. It's a well-done series. It shows you that, you can, when you're focused, who has time to be focused these days? Apparently Tom Brady. But there has to be something, from society. And when we're talking about, breastfeeding moms and passing a law about that, but there has to be some common sense. And whether we see it on the roads or whether we see it in social media where everybody's a tough guy, because you never get called out on social media. Your words are your weapons. You don't have to worry about facing anybody in the parking lot or being held accountable for saying something on social media unless you're a conservative like our friend Heidi Harris. But think about this. There has to be a line. And when you go after someone's child for no apparent reason but to put yourself over. Now, again, we all look at things differently when we're 20 and as opposed to when we're 40, right? It is true what our parents have told us. We do change. We do get more perspective. And you have this kid who, again, off-air guy, whatever, saying these things, very derogatory term about this gentleman's daughter. And yes, here's the deal. Brady doesn't have to come on because he's setting boundaries. And how many times in our life does it come down to setting boundaries with people and politicians? And I think we're going to see that tonight with Donald Trump. I think we're going to see that with Donald Trump saying, look, Democrats, if you want to be a part of the infrastructure deal, if you want to solve the security issues here in the United States of America, if you want to have anything to be proud of when you run for election and re-election in 2018, then join the team. Remember during the Obama administration, and thank goodness we had them, they used to call the Republican parties the party of no. Isn't that what the Democrats are now? Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio.
That breathe a little bit to get the details of kind of behind the scenes. The committee voting to release the Republican memo, but the Democratic memo voting not to release it at this moment.
Yes, and this is a summary memo. This is a 4-page memo that is just a summation of a year's worth of work, hundreds of thousands of pages of testimony and visits to foreign countries and speaking with all sorts of people. What broke today about McCabe, Andrew McCabe, the number 2 at FBI stepping down, suggests that we have a pretty big situation on our hands. He's only the most recent person to be demoted, step down, or be reassigned after congressional or other inquiries into some of what was happening over there at FBI. You had Bruce Orr, who was demoted twice. You had Peter Strzok, who had to be taken off the case. You have Baker, who was taken, who's gone, and Rybicki also. So this is quite a collection of people. Obviously, there's something huge going on, and I think a lot of people in the media are just kind of missing this very large story. Perhaps this memo will help us learn a little bit more about what it is that's causing all of these changes.
So, Tom, the deputy.
There we have it. Molly Hemingway from last night's Fox report with our own Brett Baird at KIDO Talk Radio. And this memo that we will wait for the president to release promises to reveal just how this phony, fake, faux Russian investigation came to the forefront. And as Molly was talking about with Brett Baird there, they're saying, well, the Democrats are going to have a memo. Really? What's in it? Well, we don't know what's in it, but they're going to have a memo. Okay. Maybe one day they'll release it. Maybe they'll make up a memo. But clearly, one of the issues that really bothers most Americans, and Sean Hannity has been on top of this forever, is what led to this Comey, Mueller investigation, Rosenstein, this triangle, if you will, where they're trying to continue to get the president. And Putin is mad at the president. We've got Russian sanctions going on. We'll get to that in a minute. But at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, this is the advantage of having the Republicans in the House and in the Senate and in the White House. Remember, President Obama said, we're going to have the most transparent government ever. And what happened? We had the most non-transparent government ever, right? Well, why don't we see this light of day? Why don't we bring out the disinfectant? Why don't we read this memo and find out whether or not the allegations are true? Jim Jordan earlier today on Fox and Friends saying the same thing. People need to know. Of course, the media won't cover it. We've got the State of the Union tonight. We hope to see you at Dave & Buster's, 6 to 9. For more details, KIDOTalkRadio.com. For our State of the Union watch party, one of 141 across the country in partnership with the Republican Party, the RNC. Why not? Why not take a look at that and say, release it and find out whether or not there was collusion? Maybe that's the end of the Mueller investigation. Well, who doesn't want to see the end of the Mueller investigation? Obviously the Democrats, right? It eliminates one of their big talking points. Time for traffic and weather together. Let's get you. And there we have it. Let's hear our own Simon Owen on the Russians.
Russian President Vladimir Putin calling it a hostile act after the US published a list of 114 Russian politicians and 96 people labelled as oligarchs, all of whom the US says have flourished under President Putin. The list does not trigger any US sanctions, but Putin's spokesman Dmitry Peskov, who's among those named, telling reporters the list could still harm Russia's image, its enterprises and its entrepreneurs. In London, Simon Owen, Fox News.
Right, of course, remember Mitt Romney, who was ridiculed, Mitt Romney, who was lambasted by CNN and others for saying that the Russians were our big threats. And remember how dismissive, how arrogant President Obama, now former President Obama, was. Hey, 1986 called. They want your foreign policy back, right? And Mitt Romney was talking about this, and now it's funny that the same media that derided and tried to destroy Mitt Romney, who will now be the next senator from Utah, are now embracing this Russian bot story. That we need to get to the truth. And we need to make sure, and the same people that are protecting Mueller are the same people that vilified Ken Starr and others when they were taking on far more serious charges involving William Jefferson Clinton. And Tom Brokaw trying to compare this to Watergate. Have you noticed everything when it comes to a Republican, everything gets compared to Watergate? It's just crazy. It's not Watergate. And this memo, once it's released, will show you where the collusion was. That Peter Strzok is still working for the FBI is beyond me. When you have the text messages, when he's got this relationship, there has to be some type of ethical thing in the FBI where you cannot have a relationship outside of marriage, I would think, when we're talking about standards, right? Coming up next, we will talk more about that, and we'll take your phone calls as well as the latest from Fox News on the radio. Don't forget tonight, it is our big party at Dave & Buster's. That's right, Dave & Buster's. For more details, KIDOTalkRadio.com. We would love to see you there. Fox News is next. Good morning.